Now more than ever, innovative technologies are fueling change and sparking new ways of thinking. Collaboration between corporations and startups is key to staying at the forefront of these trends. However, finding the right startups can be expensive, time-consuming, and ineffective. But Plug and Play is here to help. As a corporate partner, you will gain access to a whole ecosystem of innovation. Discover startups that meet your tech interests. Stay updated on the latest trends and network with industry peers. We will help you during every stage of your innovation journey, no matter where you are and where you want to go. Get in touch today.
And welcome to our next webinar of this half a year. So I'm Desiree. I think most of you have met me before in one of the other occasions. So I have the pleasure to host this webinar today that is a follow-up to our workshop that we held in June for those who attended our wonderful expo with the many people. But we figured since we already have the content together, why not give the rest of the world access to our learnings? And with that, I'm kicking things off. So I'm Senior Partner Success Manager at Plug and Play and manage our partnership with ReMark, and today we'll be hosting the workshop on gamification, where we invited 4 wonderful startups to present and give some insights on the latest trends in that regard. With this being said, we'll start off. I'll stop talking in just a minute, but run you through the agenda first. So we will have the pleasure to host Brian Green from Garmin. He will be talking about some gamification trends that he notices at Garmin, and then we'll transition over into company introductions and company presentations, meaning we have a few startups lined up as well as ReMark presenting all their solutions. So we have the pleasure to host TerraZero, Xploro Health, and ConnectEarth today. So you will all hear their take on gamification, why it matters for today's businesses in the different areas that they're operating in, before we transition over into a future panel where we discuss like why the gamification actually matters, what you can take away for your organization in terms of making it useful for your marketing purposes or your customer engagement journeys. And then lastly, I'll open up for closing remarks. And before I transition to the next slide, you will have the chance to connect with all the speakers today. So we'll have polls every now popping up in case you're listening to a recording for whatever reason today. Please feel free to reach out to us. I can also submit my email to this chat, and we'll send out the follow-up email. So you feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to facilitate these introductions for you and facilitate and deepen conversation with every presenter today. Great. With that, I'll already hand over to the first session of today's webinar, which is the Gamification Trends presentation presented by Garmin. So Brian, if you are able to unmute yourself and turn your camera back on.
Yes.
Good morning. Thank you so much. I'll pass it over to you to run us through the trends.
Great. Assuming you can see my introduction here. Thank you for that, Desiree. My name is Brian Green. I'm a wellness sales manager with Garmin Health. I've been with Garmin Health since February of 2016. And so Garmin, our overall focus is on wearables and smartwatches, but Garmin Health's focus is really targeted towards originally corporate wellness about 15 years ago when that was just coming to the fore, and has spread out to other segments such as population health, remote patient monitoring, research trials, digital therapeutics, and insurance use cases where our wearables and smartwatches are being actively used. And so just real quick, an overview of just how I see gamification is the goal ultimately is to motivate, to improve engagement and increase loyalty. And how do we accomplish that? It's very simple. We make an activity a game. It's one of the oldest tricks in the book, right? Get you to learn or do something without even realize you're doing it. And with the Garmin side of things, our original start in all of our devices can track steps. That's really kind of baseline for any wearable for that matter, going back 15 or more years now. So where we really got started was just doing weekly or monthly leaderboards with your connections, friends that you've made through the Garmin Connect app. And so that was the original start of it all. And it's very engaging. It can be a lot of fun. But as you can see in this example on the left, A lot of times you'll have those overachievers. You'll have people that are maybe always underachievers, so to speak, and then maybe you, or in this case me, are in the middle of the road there and always finishing as an also ran. So it's a game at first, and then it starts to get a little bit stale. And then that's when you start seeing engagement drop off. So we kind of went to the next generation of that with what we call challenge groups, which you see on the right side of this page, where it really creates a group of 7 to 12 users that have about the similar kind of average weekly steps. So in this example, it's 90,000 steps in a week, and allows you to compete with people that are more in your weight class, so to speak. And if you are consistently winning, then you go up a weight class essentially to a 100,000 step challenge or something like that. So keeps you engaged, keeps you in the game, keeps you feeling like you have a chance to win, but also gives you that challenge. So you have to continue to kind of top yourself week after week. And as far as on the device itself, while somebody's doing activity, so many of our Garmin wearables, smartwatches, and in this case, cycling computers are used for people to support their passions outdoors. So whether they're running or cycling, we have the ability to create live segments. And so this is where a user would simply create a point A to point B mark on a map, and then be able to either race themselves or race everybody that's ever done that segment before to see if they can make a personal best or even the best of anybody that's done that segment. And where this kind of brings that gamification to real life is while you're actually doing the activity, on the left side, you see a cycle computer showing you that a segment has begun and where you stand in relation to how much distance to go and how much time to go. And on the right side, you see an image of one of our watches showing a running version of that. So really kind of bringing that game to what would be just a solo activity or solo run or solo cycle, and bringing that game and getting you more engaged and hopefully achieving those athletic goals that you've set for yourself. And an offshoot of that has also been creating virtual badges and virtual trophies. And these are real simple ways of getting people engaged, not only with their wearable, with our Garmin Connect app as well. So whether it's something as simple as, hey, go for a run on Global Running Day back in June, and you get a point to add to your the leaderboard and get a virtual badge for that, can create that motivation for somebody who maybe was not thinking of doing anything to, okay, I can take advantage of this and I can engage with my wearable smartwatch and get some physical activity at the same time. As you can see, there's some various different examples that we roll out every month. Week by week, there's different badges that a person can earn based on whether they're running or cycling or walking or swimming, or really a lot of things that you can track outdoors at least. So it creates a great kind of game within a game for people to kind of have it as their maybe goal for that day or that week or that month. And we've kind of add some new collaborations as well to create really real world rewards that are attached to our badges. So one that we did this past March was a collaboration with Starbucks, where it was a simple step challenge. So anybody with a Garmin wearable could participate. The goal was to get 400,000 steps. And with 400,000 steps, if you achieve that by the end of the month, you got a reward, essentially just a cup of coffee for free added to your Starbucks rewards account. But something extremely simple like this, with a very low investment, got incredible engagement. People that maybe were only topping out at 200 or 300,000 steps a month, which is quite a bit, that knowing that they would be leaving a prize on the table got them more engaged in this game and really kind of created a not only great physical activity as a result of it, but got them engaged in the app and using their wearables more. Another great example of how we use gamification with kind of tying in with trophies and badges is just to build awareness of new features for our wearables. So you see a couple of examples here. The adding oxygen deeper with helium examples are actually related to dive activities that our watches can track. So this really kind of allows people to, oh, I didn't know my watch could do that, or I didn't know I could do that and earn a badge for it. So create an inventive way of getting people more involved with engaged with their wearable, and learning about new features that maybe they weren't aware of before. So whether it's a flying squirrel activity, which with a wingsuit, which believe it or not can be tracked, or high intensive interval training, or Pilates, all new activity features that have been added to our wearables, and a great way for people to engage, learn about it, and then add it to their trophy case. And of course, can't talk about gamification without talking about really where it all started, right? As kids, so many of us played games, and that's got us learning as well. And that holds true for physical activity and with our wearables, including the VivoFit Junior, which you see an example on the page here. We've tied these in with themes. So you see an Avengers theme on the left, a Mandalorian theme on the right, and providing points, ability to level up, open up new worlds within that app, but getting kids engaged as well. We always think of games with kids, but to bring a wellness component of that has been a great way to drive engagement and to get kids hopefully building healthy habits that they sustain for the rest of their lives. And it's not just with outdoor activities or walking or stuff like that. Gamification has really had a big foothold in the virtual cycling world. About 10 years ago, Zwift is one of the premier companies that offers virtual worlds where you could cycle alone just to train, or with groups and race and gain various badges and try to top personal bests. But that combines with what we call Garmin's tax brand, which is what you see on the right side. Where you actually attach your bicycle to it to create essentially your own stationary bike, but you are allowed to get into this immersive world. And some of them are more fantasy worlds, some are based on real world areas, and allow you to just really kind of have an immersive experience, and you'll cycle harder and faster than ever before when you have other people from around the world ahead of you, behind you, or next to you. And it provides a great safe environment, but really immersive game experience for those users, and has been incredibly popular, especially with the pandemic, but even after that now with more concerned with cycling safety outdoors, and then not having to be worried about inclement weather. So a great way to gamify what would normally just be a stationary bicycle where you'd be listening to music. So what's next? That's kind of what's been happening now in the gamification world. With Garmin Health, we see gamification increasingly being used in disease management, in digital health. We've seen major collaborations between pharmaceutical companies and med tech companies with a target on chronic conditions. And what really the gamification is the goal of empowering patients to take charge of their conditions, and to increase awareness of the implications of their lifestyle, both positive and negative ones. And also with the goal of boosting adherence to treatments, and educating people about adopting healthier behaviors, with the ultimate goal of reducing the chances of illnesses progressing and becoming chronic, or even in some cases reversing chronic conditions, if that's possible. And where, the key points regarding gamification as it pertains to digital health is a couple things that are really in its favor is the broad accessibility with wearables. So right now wearables they're smaller, they're lightweight, they're more affordable. And then you combined with the Internet of Things allows for easy connectivity. They have gamifications have our games have such a wide appeal, right? We've grown up accustomed to games. So when we see points or levels, stuff like that, it's something familiar, it's something fun. And that's something that we're always about having, and bringing health, combining health with that is a great marriage. And then there's such broad use cases as well. So gamification really can cover almost all major chronic health risks. You think of, obviously, I've shown some examples of physical activity, but that ties in with diet and weight management, medication adherence, rehabilitation, mental well-being, diabetes management. There's so many different avenues it can go down, and create a game that gets people immersed in that, and hopefully, again, creating healthier habits or behaviors. Just to show a few examples in the digital health world right now. First off here, it's a platform called Sidekick. So they're focused on managing chronic conditions. As you can see on the screenshot here, various levels, ability to earn points, level up, syncs with wearables. So taking your steps or being able to track when you've been active. So kind of promoting that behavior modification that we've been speaking of to reduce stress, improve physical activity, sleep, and diet. And then combining clinical validation with gamification and AI to deliver real personalized experience meant for that user and with their goals or what they're trying to improve in their lives. On the musculoskeletal front and physical therapy front, a company called Grippable uses a simple wearable. You can see it being held there by that individual on the left. So this is really kind of solving the issue of patients who have trouble complying with prescribed exercises from a doctor or physical therapist. This is being done just with a very simple handheld device and with an iPad or tablet, and being able to just do simple games where you're having to just squeeze that device essentially, and almost tricking that person into doing these exercises that maybe on their own they wouldn't be doing. And in the digital neurotherapeutic space, Mind Maze. So this is focused on aiding patients with stroke, Parkinson's, other neurological conditions, and really kind of creating these games and little worlds, so to speak, to promote movements that lead to the restoration of functions that may have been lost and with simple motions can be regained or relearned. So using just simple sensors and then a very engaging environment that's easy to participate in, gets people doing these exercises where, again, if they're just having to do them on their own, staring at a wall or nothing at all, would probably be much less engaging. And lastly, on the medication adherence side, Mango Health, a great company that is kind of promoting that. And you think of just, oh yeah, I have a reminder on my phone to take a pill in the morning, evening, or wherever it may be. This really kind of gamifies that by actually not only reminding you, but hey, did you do that? Okay, here's 10 points. And trying to level up, use those points to redeem for various rewards. Just a great way to gamify something that on the surface wouldn't be something that you could think you could make a game out of. So very inventive stuff that gamification can solve, both for healthier lifestyles and healthier behaviors. And with that, I'd just like to thank you for listening in, and yeah, appreciate your time.
Thank you, Brian. It was, as always, very inspiring and interesting. And we are just launching a poll. So in case you want to further connect with Brian, you can do this by just saying yes on this little poll feature up there, and further connect with him on all these trends. And other than that, if you have any more questions that you'd like to address him first, we'll do that panel in just a bit. So you also free to submit any questions you may have into the chat function. Okay, so I think we're up for this. So I would transition over to Robert and ReMark. So basically, Robert, if you can unmute yourself and start your video, that would be wonderful. I see you here, thank you. And I would pass it over to you to just run us through how ReMark is tackling those trends and how you are developing a new solution to solve engagement issues.
Yes, thank you, Desiree. My name is Robert Mars, and I work as a digital product manager for ReMark. And I'm happy to share some of our learnings in how we gamified health and wellness with our Good Life application. All right, let me first kick off with some background information for the ones of you who have never heard of our Good Life application. It's a white label engagement application. It's around health and wellness. And the heart of the application is our continuous underwriting algorithm, the biological age model. We use the biological age model to calculate, based on your wearable data, a bio-age reduction, which brings us to the move to earn part, because based on the accomplishments in the applications and calculations, users are rewarded coins for their physical activity. These coins they can spend in the building and reward store. So that's in short the general introduction. So over to the evolution of Good Life. We started in 2019 with our first version, and that version was entirely focused around the move to earn principle. But in the second version, which we launched in 2020, we saw that we missed one key element, which was other people. So we introduced their social gamification in the form of leaderboards, but also gift cards. So for a more not challenging gamification, but a more fun way. And this winter, we are launching our third version, where we completely reimagined our engagement model and used several gamification techniques to do so. And that's where I want to give you some more insights into. So the fundamental values were move to earn and social gamification. And based on, for the ones of you who've heard of it, the hooked model, we created a new engagement model for 3.0 with a trigger in the form of a 3D world where the users can see both their milestones in the form of treasure chests, but also their friends. A new way for users to take action with a huge list of tasks with all different kinds of focus areas around health and wellness. Then there is, with the tasks, you earn a reward, the immediate reward in the form of a bolt. And these small balls bring you forward on the map, which brings you to a new trigger. And then in time, it will also bring you to the long-term reward which you can find inside the treasure chest. So a little bit more deep dive into these metrics. So first of all, there is the visual progress, which is in the 3D map, which you can see here. One of the key things we did is that we brought everything back to one universal metric, where we previously only used our algorithm and the bioage reduction that came from. We brought everything back to one metric, which made it possible and a lot easier to compare your progress with your friends. And this map also, and that's a big benefit to making the progress visual, is that it provides direct insight into how you are doing, but also how your friends are doing, where you are, and that's that real game aspect in there. By creating daily tasks, we gave the user an ability to take action, but we also made it for ourselves that we are now a lot more flexible in what we can do. Previously, we could only go into the physical aspect of health and wellness because everything was measured with your wearable. But now we can actually set out quizzes. We can have users read elements about their wellness. We can let them do breathing exercises. So with this, like, we are expanding hugely. And also we're playing with different short and long-term tasks. So you can do a daily thing, but you can also work on something for a week. And with that, we're trying to increase the in-app activity, because you cannot now not only move outside of the application and sync it to the application, but you can also make progress inside the application. And then hopefully with all of the tasks, it brings you to the milestones. The milestones are a good way to set different targets for different users. For anyone who works with health or wellness, you will recognize that there are a lot of different users in there. You got users who take 16K steps a day. You have users who take 5K steps a day, but you need to find a way how you can motivate all of them. And with these milestones, we think we can. We put them on different spots so that there's always a new target for you to focus on, which is that constant trigger. And that is the essence of our new Good Life 3.0 version. And with that, I'll hand it back to you, Desiree.
Thank you so much. Can't wait for that 3.0 version. See? Perfect. As always, you get another chance to also further connect with Rob. And we will be sharing the contact details if you are interested in connecting further. So just reach out to us in case you're listening to the recording today. I'll give you a few more seconds to submit your decision if you want to further connect or not. And then in the meantime, you can also do some stretching. I know it's sometimes a hard day, like in front of the laptop. Perfect. So thank you so much. I'll pass it over now to Brandon, and then we go probably to the more digital experience of what that all could mean. I kind of felt Brian was really nicely laying it out for you, Brandon, on what that could look like, kind of cycling into the virtual world. But Brandon, how about you start sharing how that could look like in the metaverse?
Yes, I'm getting a notification you cannot start sharing while another participant is sharing. Let me try that again.
Okay. See.
There we go. Can everyone see the screen here? Perfect.
Now, thank you.
Yeah. So pleasure to speak to you all and be here. I'm Brandon Johnson. I'm the Chief Experience Officer at TerraZero. We offer a lot of metaverse technology services as well as experience fulfillment. And make no mistake, metaverse is a term that's had a lot of favor as of late, but it is the next generation of interactive. This is a transition into a new way that companies can engage with communities, can advertise, do a whole host of things. And gamification and interactivity is very much at the core of that. So we currently have about 25 employees and consultants. We're growing quite rapidly right now. We're actually closer to 30, 35 at this time. And we've had the pleasure of working with a lot of corporations and their subsidiaries, a lot of $50 to $100 billion plus market cap companies. And we're not going to go through these videos, but just kind of giving some examples. We made the Meta Light Bar in the metaverse, as well as Jimmy John's Meta Sandwich activation. We did a Metaverse Fashion Week activation with Estee Lauder and a whole host of other experiences. And what this empowers us to do is we build modules that bring gameplay mechanics and other kind of facets of programming and modeling and development into these spaces where that are completely open and encourage discovery, long-term value in terms of connecting with an audience, and also really high retention time. For instance, for the Meta Light Bar, we saw between 20 and 30 minutes average retention time, people being in the environment, playing the games, exploring around. We've seen upwards of 80 minutes on other experiences where we have tours and things like that. So the people who are coming to these experiences are absolutely invested in exploring every little nook and cranny. For Jimmy John's, we created a build your own sandwich inventory type game where people could collect ingredients and then make their own sandwich. They were able to upload that to a landing page for Jimmy John's, and those sandwiches were voted on. There was a limited time actual menu item that was put out, and the delivery of that limited time menu item sold out in about 5 minutes. So the people who are coming to these experiences are absolutely paying attention to what's going on. And I'm going to jump from here into a little bit more about how we work. So we build the technologies and tools and license them to lower the barriers of entry for companies, artists, entrepreneurs to get into their metaverse world of choice without having to touch crypto or do anything like that. We are an above board company. We see blockchain as a utility, but you also don't even need blockchain to have these metaversal interactive environments. Then we also create those experiences that the companies use to engage with their audiences. So we have these companies that come to our in-house studio, and we build experiences for them that give us analytics, which helps us create engagement tools that users interact with. And going the other way, users are using our engagement tools, which give us more analytics, which helps us build better experiences for the companies that we work with. These analytics are rooted in behavioral analytics, and there's very precise data you can get without having to harvest personal identifiable information in a metaverse space. And what that does is it puts the onus on the company to focus on the relationship between themselves and their products, and then their audience and how their audience is engaging with those products. So in terms of A/B product testing, the metaverse builds a very clear picture. And in terms of cross collaborations, seeing who engages with what for how much time, there are very specific kind of KPIs you can capitalize on, let alone the kind of halo effect you can create and earn media value that you can create by having a great gamified experience that resonates with consumers and touches them in a profound, meaningful way. So how does this bridge to the real world? Why does somebody need to put a headset on for 9 hours a day in order to experience the metaverse or an interactive environment at all? And the answer to that is that they don't. Most of what we do with all of our clients is through a web browser, through a tab on Google Chrome. But what's more powerful is what we're doing to bridge the virtual world and the physical world together. So the model that we run is that we bring a brand and sponsor together with, let's say, an Atlantic Records label artist or some other content creator or creative figure, or we just go with the company directly. And we'll build this virtual environment where participation in that game is routed through a loyalty rewards program to an actual physical event or an in-store offering or some kind of concert or any kind of real world element where, because of the virtual participation, you have a more exclusive or heightened experience in the physical world. And vice versa. You could go to an event or something like that. You could scan a QR code or receive some sort of digital asset. And because you hold that, because you are the owner of that digital asset, when you go into the virtual environment, you're unlocking the next level of something. And so this continuous experiential gamification paradigm is something that we feel very strongly about, and something that is utilizing things like Internet of Things to really break new ground in bringing the virtual world and physical world together. At the same time, there are many different creative opportunities, even though you could say that a lot of these emerging interactive worlds and metaverse worlds are quite simple in shape and form. People love Animal Crossing. Nintendo is a fantastically successful company. We all know that, but the point of that is that not everything needs to be photorealistic. The simple high contrast designs reduce the anxiety of the social interaction. Because people are not in a comment section typing who knows what, they are an avatar and they are being themselves, and they have the freedom to express themselves how they want. We're finding that player behavior is actually quite more authentic in these environments. That sort of social expectation in, like, do you like A or B? And that tense moment of having to somewhat perform as a consumer in that way is completely taken away here in these environments. Data security is very, very secure for users and for businesses. The adoption of brand messaging is very, very streamlined. The ways that brands have wanted to be characters or storytellers for decades, and these kinds of environments are really giving them the opportunity to do so in a way that brings not only opportunities to capitalize on a wealth of KPIs and expand their messaging across multiple verticals and environments, but this is the next market shift. If you look at something like YouTube, that's one of the greatest social movements in human history. And we all have an opportunity to participate in a way that creates these new environments where all these creators and their audiences and brands along with them can reinvent themselves and create more long-term engagement that's healthy and eye-opening and educational and entertaining all at the same time. So with that, I'm going to just jump through a couple different slides here. But that's what we're looking to do as a company, and I welcome any further conversations from here, and looking forward to connecting with you all. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Desiree.
Thank you so much, Brandon. And as always, you get the chance to further connect with Brandon or ask your questions in the Q&A portion in a few minutes. Thank you so much, Brandon, for filling us in on how we can build out like a fully virtual experience. I was super intrigued with the sandwich idea. I kind of want to build my own sandwich right now. Okay, with that, I would transition over to the next startup, to Xploro. Dom, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. Thanks, Desiree.
Perfect. So I know you, last time we hosted that, you got the pleasure of winning a Garmin watch, but I even more so welcome you back for this occasion. So thanks so much for joining. Dom, feel free to go ahead and share your screen and tell us all about Xploro.
Great. Can you just give me a thumbs up that you can see my screen?
I give you a thumbs up. We can see your screen.
Fantastic. So hi, everyone. My name's Dom Rayburn. I'm the CEO of Xploro. So Xploro is a clinically validated patient engagement platform, and it uses 3D augmented reality models, an artificially intelligent avatar guide, and a series of games with the aim of reducing anxiety for young patients going through medical treatment. And gamification is really at the heart of what we do. So we use mechanics like experience points, leaderboards, reward systems to give young patients a voice, making them feel engaged, empowered and informed whilst having fun at the same time. But before I get into the detail of how we do that, I'm going to start by talking about the problem that we're trying to solve. So across the board, provision of information preparing patients for treatments is poor, and for children, the problem's even worse. And we know that patients who are poorly informed experience high levels of anxiety, and that can be long-lived, and it can lead to poor engagement with health services and poorer health outcomes. And when patients aren't emotionally prepared, this can result in procedures having to be repeated, longer appointment times, greater need for pre-procedural sedation, reduced adherence to medicine regimes, and an increase in missed appointments. And all of that considerably increases the cost burden on health services. So putting that problem into context, I'm going to look at just one procedure, and that's MRI scans, and this is just a single example. So we know that a whopping 91% of patients report feeling extremely anxious when having an MRI. And around 20% of them move because they're not prepared for what's about to happen, and so the procedure has to be repeated. And the cost of those repeat procedures has been estimated at $115,000 per scanner per year. And that's why many children are given sedation to keep them still, but that costs roughly 3 times as much as scanning an unsedated child. And some children are so anxious about the procedure that they're given a general anaesthetic, which costs a massive 10 times as much as scanning an unsedated child. And I'm going to be talking a little bit later about how we're using gamification with children about to undergo sedation. But first of all, I'm going to take a look at the product and show you how it addresses this problem. So this is Xploro. It doesn't require any special hardware, and it's designed to sit on the patient's own device. Firstly, the child creates and customizes an avatar, which then becomes their guide through their healthcare journey. Their guide is always with them, and they can use augmented reality to see their guide in the real world. And the guide introduces the child to hospital environments and procedures using 3D augmented reality interactive models. A series of games allows the child to understand basic medical concepts, and many of these are multiplayer, allowing the patient to form new bonds with others and keep in touch with friends at home. A calendar and mood diary allow the child to take control of their day and record how they feel about events, and that allows physicians to monitor mood changes over time. And the guide can also answer any questions the child might have, and to do this we've built our own AI system that uniquely uses synthetic phonics to understand the ways in which children misspell words. And the child's progress can also be remotely monitored by gathering feedback through structured questionnaires. The responses can be sent directly to the medical record, but more importantly, from the child's perspective, every time they respond to a questionnaire, they're rewarded with a dance animation that they can apply to their avatar. Now, that last feature is one very simple example of using rewards to achieve an important goal for our customers. Typically, completion rates for questionnaires are really low, often less than 1 in 10 patients respond. But by incentivizing completion, we're able to get better data to physicians. Let me give you another example. So here's a sneak peek of a new multiplayer, multi-level augmented reality game that we're co-developing with University Hospitals Cleveland. Through a series of mini games with a linked narrative, the player gets to become familiar with every stage of the sedation encounter. So in this scene, they have to hunt around their avatar's bedroom to find the appointment letter from the hospital. And once they've found that, they have to read the instructions about how to prepare. And here they play a driving game where they have to get to hospital whilst dodging tempting snacks along the way, reinforcing the message that they need to fast prior to sedation. And in this dreamlike environment, they explore a virtual world to find hidden sedative molecules, which they have to collect to finish the game. So does our gamified approach to patient empowerment work? Well, a recent research study showed that children with access to Xploro demonstrated a statistically significant reduction in procedural anxiety, as well as statistically significant increases in both knowledge about procedures and patient satisfaction. And what's more, their parents showed similar results. So I think the answer to my question, does our approach work, is yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dom. I'm still super intrigued, and I'm like very sorry for all the costs that parents experience and that you're tackling this big challenge. I hope that people see that too, and that you get some more connections from today, and can't wait to where your journey brings you next. Okay, with that, we'll transition over to the last startup before opening up for some Q&A in the last 10 minutes. Alex, do you want to start your camera, spotlight on? Perfect. And then we'll start giving you the stage.
Yeah, thank you. I'll try and go through this so we have some more time at the end as well. Yeah, I'm Alex Lemke. I'm the co-founder and CEO at ConnectEarth. We're an environmental / fintech company based out of London in the UK. I had the pleasure of meeting a couple of you in Sunnyvale a couple of months ago. So it's great to be back on this virtual webinar this time. And fundamentally at ConnectEarth, what we do is we actually help financial institutions engage and acquire customers by offering climate-related features and products. So we fundamentally believe that in the next 5 to 10 years, every software product is going to embed climate impact data to show the end user, whether it's a business or a consumer, what their carbon footprint is, or what the environmental impact of their operations are. And we're fundamentally building out the backbone, the data backbone for this movement. And we already see things happening like Stripe launching a climate feature, or Google Flights embedding the carbon footprint of your flights. Think of us as being the infrastructure to empower other companies to do the same. And one of our core products actually is a carbon footprint API, where we analyze transaction data of the consumer and return their carbon footprint based on this. Various studies show that this is a feature which is increasing in demand. For example, in Europe over here, 70% of consumers actually want their bank to show this feature because over 95% of your carbon footprint can be actually tracked from things you buy. And this is a study Deloitte actually did a couple of months ago. And what we fundamentally focus on is how can we analyze the consumer's transaction data to help them, first of all, live more sustainably, but to also reach the ultimate goal of helping the bank engage the customer, of helping them retain the customer, and also acquire new kind of climate conscious customers. Now, the issue with the whole climate space is the fact that it's a lack of motivation in many cases, right? Everyone's kind of told to be green and be a good human and save the planet. But often that's obviously just something which is really hard to track, even for myself. And I'm kind of dedicating all my time to this kind of topic. So gamification actually is a really good way of driving change. Now, whilst we're an API solution, and I don't really have a lot of visual ways to show this, I can talk you through a bit some of the examples that we currently use with our customers. So think of us as, if you, for example, have a bank account and we embed with that bank account, you and your bank account can see your carbon footprint based on what you buy, both as a consumer and a business. And whilst for businesses, it's a bit more, driven by regulation and legislation and supplier pressure, all this kind of stuff. For consumers, it's not really driven by anything apart from motivation. Although now with the climate bill, there are a lot of, subsidies that are occurring, which, can also be gamified to help consumers understand about them. But just to kind of keep it simple in this really short presentation, there's kind of 3 ways that we really try to engage customers through gamification. The first one is that we try to send nudges and reminders to motivate users. So by gamification, we start off with the non-gamified version, which is, just giving equivalences of what a carbon footprint actually is similar to, right? So, if I say 10 kilograms of CO2, I mean, what does that mean? So we try to always kind of show the customer, okay, what does this actually relate to? And then there's almost like some simple tasks and goals we can set for the consumer to, for example, reduce their carbon footprint for the equivalent of driving from New York to Boston, right? So these are kind of challenges that we can set, and we relate those challenges to real life examples to kind of visualize it much more. And we've seen great success, which I'll show in a second. The second part is education and recommendations. So fundamentally, what we do is we empower consumers to understand, okay, so great, you told me my carbon footprint, now what? Thanks for blaming me. How do I actually change my behavior? Well, say no more, we help you understand that, right? So we actually educate you as a consumer on, fun facts, maybe some things you didn't know on how to be more sustainable, and also kind of clearing some myths to kind of free you of some guilt. Buying something, fresh sometimes isn't even more sustainable than something. Like, there's so many different kind of aha moments that I can go into detail right now. For example, strawberries being produced in season in the UK actually produces 490 grams of CO2, which is the same as flying that in from South Africa, right? So we can use this educational component to actually, again, set goals and motivations for consumers to change their habits. We can compare them to similar users in the same app. We can compare them to the US general population. So we can really gamify the experience for the end user to empower them to understand, okay, I want to set a challenge to maybe go vegan. Here is my goal. I want to set a 30-day streak, and we can then reward the user with things like, for example, cashbacks on merchants that are more sustainable. In terms of how this works in practice, I mean, we see that through gamification, we've been able to pretty optimistically directly reduce emissions by 7%, not looking at things like, carbon offsets where you can plant trees, purely through behavioral change. We see that with gamification, users are actually 52% more aware of the feature and of the environment in general than without the gamification feature, which we actually A/B tested with one of our customers in Austria. And with gamification, we actually see 25% more in-app engagements compared to the feature without gamification. So it's quite significant, but really important to flag that we don't increase 25% of in-app engagement. It's just relative to when we don't have a gamification feature versus when we do have a gamification feature. And we currently, work with a bunch of financial institutions on this, mainly in Europe, but we've recently partnered with FIS, which is one of the biggest fintech companies in the US, to expand this in the United States, which is where this feature is growing, and the gamification element does play a big role, given that the public kind of awareness of climate change is not, as kind of concentrated and as high as in Europe. So the extrinsic motivational factor is much more important than in Europe, such as the intrinsic motivational factor, which most consumers have here, at least in the Gen Z millennial phase. Yeah, that's all from my side. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Alex. That was great. I like that we covered all kind of areas, especially with you tackling like a very important topic for everybody in the world. If you want to further connect, we just launched a poll already. If you listen to the recording once again, feel free to reach out, and we're happy to make the email introduction. With that, I would transition over to the last portion of today, and like to ask to unmute all the panelists, and we'll go into like full screen of everybody spotlighted. And then we'll start off with some questions. For everybody listening in at this point, this is the chance that I mentioned a couple times. You get the chance to put in your questions, can raise a hand, I believe. If you feel like you want to speak up, we can try and unmute you. But other than that, we'd really appreciate you submitting any questions on the Q&A. And to kick things off, I kind of prepared a few questions for the audience today. And I would just kind of start off with TerraZero first, and Brandon. And kind of kicking things off in the metaverse, but what aspects of gamification have you found are most relevant in your opinion, for customer interaction? What have been the tools that you find? I can give this to any kind of industry as a takeaway.
Sure. I think any industry to that point, the goal is to nest the idea of get the thing, which is some sort of, there's a topic or a concept called the completionist theory in gaming, which is if there's more to do to complete something, people are going to do it. So we've had experiences where we've had thousands and thousands of people help move thousands and thousands of different digital assets and things like that. So if there's some sort of quest element or some sort of barrier between getting some sort of reward, and you can almost have any kind of mechanism behind that. Obviously, you want to do something authentic and good, and something that gives value. But we've been able to implement surveys all kinds of positive moving KYC efforts, things that produce safety. We've been able to nest all of that behind the completionist theory.
Thank you very much for your take, Rob. I would like to pass it over to you. What aspects did you find have been, like you mentioned a few before, but what would you give as a key takeaway to everybody listening?
Yeah, I think so. What we do is we use a lot of different gamification techniques, but it's all brought back to we want to improve the stickiness of users inside our application. And I think that's something a lot of companies are struggling with, because where the experiences inside applications are getting better and better, you have to fight for your users' attention to get them in your application, and once they're in, to keep them in there. And I think that's a very important learning that we've took from version 1 to version 3, where we trying to, with every version, keep the user longer inside the application, so give them more to do, more triggers, more different things. Yeah, I think that's the the biggest learning for us.
Interesting. And have you come over any hurdles? Maybe I'll pass it over to Ryan, since you guys are probably closely working with each other, but where do you see the most hurdles to actually implement gamification? Like I see your challenges with Starbucks and with cycling initiatives, but what have been the biggest challenge in incorporating such solutions?
With any of that, there's no one size fits all kind of solution. So what may be motivating to me is not motivating to the person next to me. So some people are really motivated by being in group challenges and having all that, but then how do you make it so it's more of an individual thing? And that's where just having ones where like the Starbucks promotion that we did gets people, okay, I can win this for myself. I don't care about beating my coworkers or my family in a step challenge. I want to win this for myself. So it's all about trying to find new inventive ways to keep people engaged, as Robert mentioned, and there's no one size or no one solution, but just kind of evolving that to allow various different ways for people to be involved in the game.
Interesting. I would like to pass it over to Dom, because I see that you have probably a different hurdle to overcome, and not just to engage customers in general, but also children. What I kind of like to think of that we all like to play and like bring out the inner child, but is there anything we can take away from you? What have been the hurdles you've experienced so far, and what do you do to overcome those?
So I think the biggest hurdle is that last year, as an example, last year I celebrated a big significant birthday. I'm not going to say what it is, but that puts a lot of distance between myself and our end users. And it's true of our team. Our team are in their 30s, 40s, some in the 20s. That's a long way from an 8 or 9 or 10-year-old, which is our target market. So I think the biggest hurdle, not just for working with children, but for designing a game for anyone, is to involve your users in the co-development of the game. So, for example, we have what we call our expert advisory board, and our expert advisory board, the oldest member is 16, the youngest member is 8. And they've got a broad range of experiences. Half of them have been through treatment for serious illnesses, and the other half have never been into hospital at all. And it's by involving them in the co-design of everything that we do that we can ensure that what the content that we create, the games we create, are age appropriate. Because who am I to say what an 8 or 9 or 10-year-old would like? Certainly not. There's a lot of water under the bridge between me and an 8-year-old. So yeah, I think involve users and always build with your end users in mind.
Yeah, that brings up a very interesting topic, right? Like the younger generations of like how to engage them more. I think, Alex, you mentioned also the younger generations being more conscious about our environment, and probably also giving us some more pressure on becoming more sustainable. But have you done or experienced a similar approach involving different age groups as you're developing the app, or what has been your kind of takeaway from best practices?
Yeah, I think it's not just been age group, it's been also regional factors, right? So for example, we are live in Bulgaria, and that's a very different market to the UK or the US or Canada, right? So it's not just the age group, it's also the region in which you operate in, and public consciousness, especially with our product, right? Even in the US, right? I mean, we're part of the FS accelerator, and I had to be in Arkansas, and I was like, there's no way this product will be big in Arkansas in the next 10 years. So it's these sorts of things where we find it really difficult to test gamification. We have like an internal demo test app when we have users, but like it's really hard to actually test if it works. You have all the different methods, you have all the different kind of examples, case studies, but fundamentally, I think the hardest thing for us has been testing if it works or not. And kind of, it's hard to like test something that doesn't work, especially if you're, in our case, where we integrate with customers, we're almost like having to tell them, hey, we know, like, we don't even know if this works. So we have to adjust it along the way, right? So that's kind of been the biggest hurdle for us. And yeah, 100%. I mean, the age differences and the regional differences between customers and countries have been extremely challenging for us. But it makes it more fun. So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds very intriguing. Maybe before we transition over it, like, I think that's something that we all are eager to hear about. You mentioned the cultural differences. What made it unique in Bulgaria that everybody started to get involved?
Honestly, I think it was more about facts. I think in Bulgaria, it was more about educating them on why this is important in the first place. Also for us, actually, Bulgaria is one of the countries which is most reliant on cash in the world. I think the 6th biggest one. So we actually had to get a lot of user input because we couldn't cover every transaction. So it was probably the most challenging one, but I think it was just being factual, right? Kind of limiting the kind of using gamification as a way to educate, not as a way to necessarily engage. Also because it was a pretty like corporate bank. It was a big bank that, was like a big kind of old like legacy bank. It was a bit more light on the gamification side compared to, Cogni, which is a US, New York City based Gen Z neobank. So very, very different.
Interesting. So it's kind of like more going towards educating rather than like
exactly
engaging. Thank you, Dom. Like, yeah, I know we're about to wrap up. So I don't want to go too much over time, but if like I would love to just hear like 1-2 words as closing remarks or takeaways from what you've learned during your experience. Dom, I let you jump off, and I'll talk to you hopefully very soon. And
Thanks very much.
See you soon. And Brandon, maybe do you want to say 1 or 2 closing remarks from takeaways that you also got to learn from our expo experience and gamification?
I think that there's a different way to meaningfully engage with all different kinds of markets, and you can kind of get at a theme and a personal goal at the same time, and artfully crafting that and finding the convergence of entertainment and entertainment technology is where we all are. So the fact that this is all happening now makes it a beautiful time to be alive, and I'm happy to be here with you. I have another meeting as well, but happy to connect with all of you.
I'll let everybody jump off. Rob, any closing words from your end? Brandon, you feel free to jump.
Yeah, it was interesting to connect again. And as I mentioned in the previous meeting we had, it's nice to see how we are all in a completely different market, but using kind of the same techniques, but for our own user base and our own cultural background. And I think that's a real nice takeaway from this.
Thank you so much. Brian, I just want to give you the opportunity to also say the last word, and then I'll wrap it up from here.
Great. It's been fantastic hearing everybody's use cases and gamification, and just how we're making these sustained and hopefully engaging habits for good. And I think that's where gamification is showing its most impact, and so many various different segments. So excited to see it continue to evolve and get more people involved, and hopefully hitting their goals or achieving what they wanted to achieve. So it's fantastic to hear, and I'm really excited to hear where it goes moving forward.
Thank you so much, Brian. Okay, with that, I'm wrapping up for today's session. I thank everybody for dialing in and especially for sharing the importance of cultural differences and the opportunity of like educating or engaging, and that there may be like two different poles, but that ultimately help you in leveraging gamification for your purposes. I wish you all a wonderful day and reach out if you have any questions. Bye-bye.